Hi y'all! Welcome to my brand spanking new podcast called You're So Fucking Enlightened, a not so serious approach to all things spiritual. My name is Robin Webb. I am 43 years old. If you're into astrology, which I sort of am, but not really, I'm on the Gemini Cancer cusp. If you know what that means, please let me know. I know a lot about Cancer, but Gemini I know a little bit about, but I just, I'm not that into it. I do want to learn more about it, though, hopefully on this podcast. I have two kids. They're almost not kids anymore. One definitely isn't. They're 17 and 20. I have an amazing, supportive husband named Thomas. He is great. I couldn't ask for a better partner in this life. I have two dachshunds that I love to death. They have become my new babies because my babies aren't babies anymore. Their names are Frank and Lola. And I did name them after that Jimmy Buffett song, Frank and Lola. They go on their second honeymoon to Pensacola. It's a delightful little jingle. I had to name them that. So in my life, I've had a ton of jobs. I've been a server. I've been a bartender, receptionist. I owned a home daycare. And then I went back to school. I got my teaching degree. I taught elementary school for a year, and I taught middle school English and history for a couple years before I retired, and now I am in recovery from that. Bless the teachers out there in the world. After that, I actually went back and got my master's degree in instructional design. Kind of during that, I started a senior home care business, which has really nothing to do with instructional design, although I do find use for that in my daily life. But yeah, I had a senior home care business, which I sold in January, and I purchased this property, which is in Southwest Florida, Punta Gorda, which closest city is Fort Myers, if you're unfamiliar. It's a small retreat resort. I call it a mini resort. I'm actually living here right now and traveling back and forth to Virginia as often as possible. Our youngest kid will graduate in May of next year, and then Thomas will move down here with me, and we will both live here in Florida. Right now I'm living at Solstice, and looking forward to having a permanent residence here. I've wanted to be here as long as I can remember, and no, it has nothing to do with the politics. We'll talk more on this later, maybe, but not like you think. This is not going to be a political podcast, but I do have some things to say about politics in general. I wanted to be here 100% because of the weather, the water, the sunshine, the palm trees, all of those things that you picture when you think about Florida. I wanted all of it. I feel so lucky to have found the space that I did. The resort is open to people that want to hold retreats, people that want a vacation. It's a beautiful resort. SolsticePG.com, plugging my resort. There it is. I won't be doing that all the time, but we also have an Airbnb in Hatteras, North Carolina. It's called the Pearl of Hatteras, which is in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, which, sorry to disappoint my Outer Banks lovers that watch that on Netflix. The show isn't filmed in South Carolina, and the Outer Banks don't actually look anything like that. The setting is completely different. There are no palm trees in the Outer Banks unless they're just, maybe you can find a couple of them, but they're not in good shape. It gets too cold there in the winter for good palm trees to exist. So that little house called the Pearl of Hatteras, like I said, it's small but incredibly beautiful. We love that home dearly. We rent it out to others, and they have loved it just as much. It's my personal solace. It's my personal retreat where I can go and not be working. It's great. So some things that I love. Business. I love business. I love anything entrepreneurship. I love real estate. It's fascinating to me. I love the warmth. I love my family. I love my dogs. I really love my friends too so much, and I miss a lot of them. I love yoga. I've practiced yoga for over 20 years now. I love the water, and I love the sunshine. There's not much I hate, but I do struggle with the cold weather. That is my kryptonite. It hurts me in my bones. I've suffered from seasonal depression for years, and I'm hoping that moving here will really help me with that. So now, enough about me, yada, 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 about the podcast. So it's called You're So Fucking Enlightened. I'm sorry, Mom and Dad, I'm cussing on my podcast. And why do I have to cuss? There's a couple reasons. One, because I want to be my most authentic self, and I cuss in everyday life. I want to talk on my podcast like I talk in real life. I don't want it to come across as me being perfect, so I'll be fucking cussing sometimes, okay? Second is because spirituality and enlightenment in general, or how, if that's what you want to call it, is always taken so seriously. It's a very serious topic for a lot of people, and I don't think it should be. People have this idea about what this whole spiritual space should look like, and I'm here to dispel those myths. Are some of them true? Absolutely. But definitely not all of them, and I want to bring a more relaxed and open approach to the whole concept. My cussing is not intended to offend you, and if it does, you know what to do. Just keep moving. That's what you do when you find something you don't like. You just keep moving. Stay in your lane, mind your business. But I say that with love. So our episodes will be a mixture of me talking, but I also plan on having guests and bringing guests in that have more experience in certain subjects that I'm interested in or want to learn more about. People that may be a little more of an expert on these topics. I don't claim to be an expert on anything. Disclaimer, I'm always in learning mode, and I have learned some things, and I will share the things that I have learned with you. Some of them have helped me. Maybe they'll help you, but it's going to be a light-hearted podcast. There will never be a strict agenda. We're going to go with the flow. There will be a theme for each one, of course, but we are going to go with the flow. If something else comes up, we may have to take a little left turn and go somewhere else. I do like to follow my intuition and my heart when it comes to just going with the flow. So we'll be learning about all, like I said, we'll have these topics for each podcast. We'll be learning about all of them broadly. I think that if you are where I am, you may know a surface level about all of these things, and you may be curious about some of this stuff. We may eventually dive deeper into the topics, but I will always refer you back to the introduction to the topics. Just an example, like if we'll have a what is astrology? What is it even? Why does it exist? Where did it come from? What is it? Yada, yada, yada. And then maybe we'll dive deeper, but I'll always refer you back to that very first episode. This is where you should start if you want to learn more about astrology. Some of the topics that I do want to discuss are yoga and all things related to that. I am actually a certified yoga teacher. Like I said, I've been practicing for a while. Yoga has completely changed my life, but of course I don't know everything, right? So I want to discuss. I want to learn a little bit more. Bring someone who's been doing things for a little bit longer than I have to talk to you about it, and who has retained more knowledge about yoga. I want to learn about Reiki. We're going to talk about Reiki and other energy healing. We'll talk about some religions that I want to learn a little bit more about. Like I said before, astrology. We'll learn about tarot, sound healing. I mentioned being in the flow and going with the flow with the universe. What does that mean? That's kind of a weird concept. Also, speaking of weird concept, manifestation. We'll talk about manifestation and what that looks like. There's a lot of misconceptions about that word. I do want to dive into the world of life coaching and like guides. We'll talk about the chakras. And we'll talk about any other topics that have to do with fucking enlightenment, right? If there's another topic that I didn't mention that you want to learn more about, let me know. I might be able to add it to the list. Okay, so that's basically it. At the end of every podcast, I'm going to tell you what I'm reading, watching, and listening to, and I'm going to tell you about our next podcast. So, what am I reading? I am reading Stephen King's fairy tales. It's a long book. I think it's 600 some pages. I'm only about halfway done. If you've ever read anything Stephen King, you know he is a master storyteller, and this is no exception. So far, very good. Character development is amazing. Just the whole arc of the characters. If you like Stephen King, it's a good pick. What am I watching? I'm not currently watching anything, sadly. The last thing that I binge watched Mo on Netflix. It's about a Palestinian immigrant who is going through the process of citizenship and all of the ups and downs of that. But also it's hilarious, and it's just, he's a comedian. It's so funny. I do recommend that show if you like things that are like dramedies. I love dramedies. I like it when they have serious topics, but they make light and fun of them, which is kind of what I'm doing here, I guess. And what am I listening to? I'm currently re-listening to Gabby Bernstein's The Universe Has Your Back. I've listened to this a couple times. I've read the book. It's kind of what I come back to every time I start to need more inspiration. If I lose inspiration, I'm feeling uninspired, I come back to this and it really helps me get back into the inspiration zone. So, our next podcast, we're going to actually come out of the gate with a 3-part series called The 4 Stages of Enlightenment. We're going to talk about what enlightenment means. What does that word mean? And we are also going to talk about the first stage of enlightenment. These stages of enlightenment, and I'm going to say this over and over again, you'll probably get tired of hearing it. I am not an expert on the subject of enlightenment. Everything that I'm telling you is from my personal experience, my personal, what I have seen and what I have gone through and what I've maybe heard other people go through. So that's what we'll talk about that. We'll have it's going to be a 3-part series on the 4 stages of enlightenment. If you want to cheat and read ahead, actually a lot of these concepts are taken from my ebook, which is a free ebook that you can download. We'll put it in the show notes, or you can find it in my bio on Instagram. You can find me at Robin Webb, ROBBINWEBB on Instagram, or you can follow our retreat center, Solstice Punta Gorda. It's also in that bio, that link in that bio. And the ebook is called The 4 Stages of Enlightenment, an Introduction. So if you want to cheat, but you can always just wait it out and come back for the podcast. Thank you so much for listening and joining me. I'm very grateful that you're here with me. I'm doing this for fun. I'm not doing it with really any agenda. It's just for fun. I like being able to get my thoughts out there into the world. And here you are. So what I would love for you to do is to get out there and love each other. That's all I want to see happening. That's really my main goal. Y'all take care and have a great week.